Inside the forbidden palace of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the morning air felt heavier than the stone walls themselves. The servants moved in silence, gliding across polished floors that reflected the faint glow of lanterns burning through the night. Every step was measured, every glance downward. In this palace, a place whispered about even among generals, obedience was survival. Qin Shi Huang ruled not only with power but with an aura that stretched into every corridor. It was said that he trusted no one completely, not even his closest ministers. He created laws, chambers, and rituals that remained unseen by most who served him. And deep within the palace stood the Hall of Sealed Decrees, a room no servant had ever been permitted to witness. Rumors claimed the emperor kept ancient texts there, records of prophecies, and objects brought from distant lands he had conquered. But rumors were as dangerous as rebellion. Among the countless attendants was Arin, a young helper assigned to the western wing. His task was simple: carry water at dawn, avoid restricted areas, return without attracting attention. He had followed this path for 2 years, memorizing every crack in the floor, every turn he must never take. But that morning, something changed. A door, one he had never seen opened, stood ajar at the end of a narrow passageway. A warm amber light spilled onto the marble like a silent invitation. Arin froze. That door led toward the inner quarter, the emperor's private sanctum. No servant without direct command had ever stepped beyond that threshold and returned unchanged, if they returned at all. Still, curiosity tugged at him. He reminded himself that a single mistake inside Qin Shi Huang's domain could cost more than a life. It could erase an entire family line. Yet the glow inside the room seemed to whisper, urging him to look, just once. Arin leaned closer and saw what looked like a chamber of relics. Bronze statues lined the walls, each shaped like mythical beasts. A massive obsidian mirror reflected distorted fragments of the room. But at the center stood a raised pedestal holding a sealed chest bound with iron and ancient symbols he did not recognize. He knew he should leave. He even stepped back. But something, a mix of fear, wonder, and a sense that fate was tightening around him, pulled him forward again. Arin's foot crossed the threshold. And in that exact moment, behind the statue of a lion-shaped guardian, a pair of eyes opened. He was not alone. Someone had been waiting for him to break a rule no servant dared to test. Arin's breath stalled as he stepped fully into the chamber. The air felt thicker, almost electric, as though the room itself recognized an intruder. He turned slowly, unsure whether to retreat or pretend he had never crossed the forbidden line. But before he could decide, a faint sound echoed, the scrape of a sandal against stone. From behind the bronze guardian emerged a figure draped in dark crimson robes. It was Li Shun, the emperor's personal archivist, a man spoken of only in whispers. Many believed he cataloged not only historical records but secrets too dangerous to store in any scroll. His narrow eyes settled on Arin with a calmness that was far more frightening than anger. "Step away from the pedestal," Li Shun said quietly, though his voice carried like a blade sliding from its sheath. Arin obeyed instantly, his legs trembling. His mind raced through excuses. He was lost, he was mistaken, he was following orders, but none felt strong enough to stand against the gravity of his offense. Li Shun circled him, studying his face as though reading a page. "No servant enters this chamber without the emperor's word. And yet, here you are." Arin bowed deeply, forehead nearly touching the floor. "I meant no harm, Masterly. The door was open. I only looked inside." "The Forbidden Palace does not open doors," Li Shun replied. "But it does test those who walk within it." The archivist moved toward the pedestal and rested his hand upon the sealed chest. "Do you know what lies inside?" Arin shook his head, though curiosity burned in him stronger than fear. "This," Li Shun continued, "is the emperor's greatest obsession. A relic said to contain the last writings of an ancient seer, texts predicting the rise and fall of dynasties. Qin Shi Huang believes they conceal the key to immortality." Arin felt cold spread across his skin. The emperor's quest for eternal life was known throughout the land, but to stand before an object tied to such ambition felt unreal, like a dream he should never have entered. Li Shun turned back to him, expression unreadable. Your life should end here for stepping into this room. Yet, he paused, eyes narrowing. Something brought you to this door. Chance does not exist in this palace. Arin dared to lift his gaze. What do you mean? You will learn, Li Shun murmured. For now, you will come with me. Your fate is no longer your own. He gestured toward a hidden exit behind the mirror, a narrow passageway swallowed in darkness. Arin hesitated, but refusal was not an option. As he crossed into the passage, the mirror slid shut with a low rumble, cutting off the chamber and sealing whatever destiny awaited him. Somewhere deeper in the palace, a gong sounded. And in that echo, Arin sensed the beginning of consequences far beyond anything he could imagine. Diga prasiga para receiber o bloco 3. The passageway descended sharply, lit only by torches that flickered as if disturbed by unseen drafts. Arin followed Li Shun in uneasy silence, each step echoing against the narrow walls carved with symbols he didn't recognize. This path, he realized, was not meant for ordinary servants. It carried the weight of centuries, secrets, and decisions that shaped empires. Li Shun did not speak until they reached a stone platform overlooking an underground hall. From above, Arin saw rows of scrolls stored in lacquered chests, shelves of jade tablets, bronze instruments whose purposes he couldn't imagine, and a massive circular table engraved with constellations. The smell of ink, dust, and something older, something like damp earth, drifted through the chamber. This, Li Shun said, is the Hall of Eternal Records. Only 4 people alive are allowed inside. The Emperor, his astrologer, the High Minister, and me. His gaze hardened. And now you. Arin swallowed. I don't understand. I'm no one. I never asked. No one asks, Li Shun interrupted. The palace chooses. And it has chosen you. But Arin saw something else in Li Shun's eyes, hesitation, as though the archivist himself doubted the meaning of this unexpected intrusion. He motioned Arin forward, and the young servant stepped onto the stone floor of the hall, feeling the weight of hidden knowledge pressing down like a physical force. Look there, Li Shun said, pointing toward the constellation table. Beneath its surface, faint slender lines glowed as though lit from within. This is where the Emperor observes the prophecies. Every alignment carved here is tied to the seer's writings. He believes the world bends to patterns written long before our time. Arin approached slowly, mesmerized. Light pulsed from one particular point, a symbol resembling a broken circle. What does that one mean? Arin asked. Li Shun's expression darkened. It marks the rise of a single defier, a servant who will break a forbidden rule and shift the Emperor's fate. Arin froze as the words sank in. His chest tightened. He felt the air leave the room. Li Shun stepped closer, lowering his voice. For years the Emperor has searched for signs of this figure, fearing it more than any enemy beyond the palace walls. And now, you appear, crossing into a chamber sealed by law and legend. A chill ran through Arin. I didn't know. I never meant. Meaning does not matter, Li Shun said calmly. Only action. And your action has echoed where you cannot yet hear. Before Arin could speak again, a deep rumble shook the hall. Dust cascaded from the ceiling, and the glow beneath the table intensified, spreading outward like veins of fire. Li Shun's eyes widened, not with fear, but with recognition. The Emperor must be informed, he whispered. Your presence has awakened something. He turned to Arin with grave finality. From this moment, your life is bound to the Forbidden Palace in ways you cannot escape. Above them, somewhere on the surface, another gong sounded, louder, sharper, urgent. The palace had felt the shift, and it would not remain silent. The rumbling faded, but a tension lingered in the air, settling over the Hall of Eternal Records like a storm waiting to break. Li Shun wasted no time. He signaled Arin to follow and ascended a steep stairway that spiraled upward through the ancient stone. The torches along the walls flickered wildly, as though reacting to the faint tremors still rippling beneath the palace. When they emerged into the upper corridors, the atmosphere had changed. Guards rushed past them with rigid expressions, their armor rattling as they disappeared toward the inner sanctum. Whispered orders traveled through the hallways in clipped, anxious tones. Something monumental had occurred, and somehow Arin sensed that he was at the center of it. Li Shun moved quickly, but not carelessly. "Do not speak unless spoken to," he warned. "And do not meet the Emperor's eyes unless he commands it. Your fate may depend on silence." Arin nodded, though his heart hammered violently. The closer they drew to the Emperor's chamber, the more oppressive the air became, as if the walls themselves listened. Finally, they reached a pair of towering doors carved with dragons swallowing their own tails. 2 elite guards stood before them, halberds crossed. The Emperor summoned no one, one guard declared. "State your purpose." Li Shun bowed. A disturbance awakened the celestial table. "We must report immediately." Recognition flickered in the guard's eyes. Without another question, he struck the doors twice with the butt of his weapon. The heavy panels groaned open, releasing a wave of warm incense and an unmistakable sense of authority. Inside, the room was dimly lit by oil lamps arranged in a perfect circle around a raised throne. Emperor Qin Shi Huang sat forward, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on the shimmering scroll unrolled before him. His presence felt larger than life, a force rather than a man. He did not look up when he spoke. "Li Shun, explain." Li Shun bowed deeply. "Great Emperor, the prophecy chamber has been stirred." The symbol of the D-fire glowed with unprecedented intensity. "And there was an intruder." Only then did the Emperor lift his gaze, and his eyes locked onto Arin. There was no anger in them, only an unsettling calculation, as though he were measuring the weight of Arin's existence. "A servant?" Qin Shi Huang asked. "How did he enter the sealed chamber?" Li Shun kept his voice steady. "A door was inexplicably open, Majesty." He crossed the threshold. The Emperor rose slowly, each movement deliberate, controlled. He approached Arin with steps that felt like the fall of distant thunder. When he stopped before him, Arin lowered his head, fighting the urge to tremble. "For centuries," the Emperor said quietly, "I have studied the writings foretelling a single breach, one that could unravel my destiny. And now I stand before the one who walked into that breach without fear." Arin swallowed hard. "I didn't know, Great Emperor. I meant no defiance." "The prophecy does not require intention," Qin Shi Huang replied. "Only action." He circled Arin once, stopping behind him. "Whether you are the threat foretold, or the key I have awaited, remains to be seen." The Emperor returned to his throne and raised a hand. "This servant will remain under my watch. No decision shall be made until the signs reveal themselves." Li Shun bowed. "As you command." But Arin felt it, felt the shift in the Emperor's tone, the unspoken tension in the room. He had not been condemned, but he had not been spared. He had become something the Emperor feared, and perhaps something he needed. Arin was escorted from the Emperor's chamber not by guards, but by Li Shun himself, a decision that carried its own message. The archivist walked in silence, his robes whispering against the floor as they moved through the restricted corridors normally reserved for the Emperor's closest circle. Only when they reached a small antechamber lit by a single lantern did Li Shun finally speak. "You must understand," he said quietly, "that what happened today cannot be undone. The Emperor does not ignore signs, no matter how faint. And the prophecy you awakened is not one he takes lightly." Arin lowered himself onto a wooden bench, his legs weak. "I didn't want any of this. I only looked inside because the door." Li Shun raised a hand. "The palace opened that door." Arin hesitated. "You keep saying that. What does it mean?" "This place is ancient," Li Shun replied. "Older than the Emperor's rule, older than the Qin dynasty. Some halls were built on sites once used by mystics and astronomers. The palace reacts to certain energies, to omens. If it allowed you entry, it is because your presence serves a purpose, even if you do not yet know it." Arin struggled to process the weight of those words. He had always believed his fate was small, predictable, forgettable. But now the Empire's most feared man, and its most dangerous prophecy, were suddenly tied to him. Before he could respond, the door slid open and 2 lesser ministers stepped in, carrying a ceremonial scroll bound with red silk. Their expressions were tense, their movements rehearsed. One minister bowed stiffly. By decree of the emperor, this servant is to be relocated to the inner quarters under provisional observation. Arin's eyes widened. Observation? Li Shun translated the meaning without softening it. You will remain within the Forbidden Palace, under constant watch. The emperor wants you near. The ministers placed the scroll on a low table. Your duties are suspended. You are to follow all instructions delivered to you. No corridors beyond your assigned chambers are to be crossed without escort. As quickly as they arrived, the ministers retreated. Arin stared at the sealed decree, feeling its weight even before opening it. So I am a prisoner? Li Shun shook his head slowly. Not a prisoner. Not yet. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Listen carefully. The emperor does not fear rebels. He crushes them. But prophecies unsettle him. He will study you, test you, determine whether you threaten his immortality or support it. Arin felt a deep chill. And if he decides I am the threat? Li Shun's silence answered for him. The lantern flickered, casting long shadows across the walls. Arin suddenly felt as though the palace itself was breathing around him, adjusting to this new piece on its vast, unseen board. Rest, Li Shun said at last. Tomorrow, the emperor will decide your first task. And that task will reveal the shape of your fate. Arin lay awake long after Li Shun departed, listening to distant gongs and footsteps echoing through the halls. The Forbidden Palace was no longer just a place he served. It had become a labyrinth he could not escape, and one that had already chosen him. Arin's first night in the inner quarters passed without sleep. Every creak in the walls, every flicker of the lantern, every whisper of wind against the carved screens felt deliberate, as if the palace were studying him just as closely as the emperor intended. When dawn finally arrived, a soft knock echoed at his door. Li Shun entered without ceremony, his expression grave but composed. The emperor has summoned you, he said. Your first assignment has been chosen. Arin stood, nerves coiling tightly in his chest. Do you know what he wants of me? Li Shun hesitated, a rare crack in his usually unreadable demeanor. He seeks confirmation. Whether the prophecy has chosen you, or whether your presence yesterday was simply coincidence. They walked through a series of quiet corridors until reaching a courtyard enclosed by high red walls. In the center stood an altar carved from white jade, surrounded by bronze incense burners shaped like serpents. Emperor Qin Shi Huang waited beside it, his back straight, his gaze fixed on the rising sun. The moment he turned, the air thickened. His presence seemed to press down on Arin, as though testing the very space around him. Step forward, the emperor commanded. Arin obeyed, stopping just before the jade altar. Last night, the emperor began. The astrologers reported an anomaly in the sky, a single wandering star shifting from its predicted path. Such events coincide with the prophecies you triggered. Qin Shi Huang motioned toward a scroll resting on the altar. Its surface was old, edges worn, symbols faded by time. You will read from this, he said. These are passages believed to expose the nature of the defier. If the palace reacts, I will have my answer. Arin's throat tightened. Majesty, I do not know these symbols. You will read them, the emperor repeated, or you will prove yourself unworthy of the chamber you entered. Li Shun stepped forward, whispering, Speak them aloud as best you can. The accuracy matters less than the reaction. Arin lifted the scroll with trembling hands. The parchment felt strangely warm, as if infused with breath or memory. He focused on the unfamiliar characters, looping lines, sharp strokes, patterns that swirled like constellations. He spoke the first word. The air shivered. He spoke the second. The bronze incense burners rattled softly. He spoke the third. A gust of wind tore across the courtyard, extinguishing every flame. Guards reached for their weapons. Li Shun froze. The emperor's eyes narrowed with dangerous intensity. Arin continued, unable to stop himself. The words seemed to pull themselves from his throat, like something ancient guiding his tongue. On the final syllable, the ground beneath the altar trembled, sending ripples through the stone tiles. A crack split across the jade, glowing faintly for a single heartbeat before fading. Silence fell, heavy, suffocating, absolute. Qin Shi Huang approached Arin slowly. "The palace responds to you," he said, voice low but steady. "Not from fear. Not from accident. But from recognition." Arin's pulse pounded in his ears. "What does that mean, Majesty?" The Emperor studied him with unsettling calm. "It means," he said, "that your fate is no longer a question." The pause. A flicker of something unreadable crossed his face. "You are the one the prophecy foretold." Arin felt the world tilt. Whatever he had awakened, whatever the palace had recognized, was no longer theoretical. It was real, and consequences were coming. The courtyard remained eerily still after the Emperor's declaration, as if even the wind dared not disturb the moment. Arin felt his knees weaken, but he forced himself to remain upright. To collapse before Qin Shi Huang would be to show fear, and fear, in the Forbidden Palace, was a language that could be fatal. Li Shun stepped forward cautiously. "Great Emperor, if Arin is indeed the one from the prophecy, then he will serve a new role," Qin Shi Huang interrupted, his gaze never leaving Arin. "One that only he can fulfill." Arin swallowed hard. "Majesty, I am only a servant. I never sought to." "Fate does not seek permission," the Emperor said. "It arrives. And it demands." He turned, signaling the guards to disperse. Li Shun remained beside Arin, rigid and silent, waiting for the Emperor's next order. After a long moment, Qin Shi Huang spoke again, quieter but sharper. "You will accompany me to the chamber of the unending flame," he said. "What sleeps there has not awakened for any man, not even me. If it answers you, the prophecy is confirmed beyond doubt." Arin felt the blood drain from his face. Li Shun's expression shifted ever so slightly, not fear, but concern. The Chamber of the Unending Flame was a name whispered among the palace staff like a ghost story. Some said it held ancient relics from the empire before the Qin. Others believed it contained something far older, something not meant for human hands. The Emperor motioned them forward. "We go now." They passed through guarded corridors, down staircases that seemed to descend into the earth itself. The torches grew brighter with each step, burning with an orange glow that flickered unnaturally, as though stirred by something other than air. At the base of a narrow hall stood a door forged from black stone, marked with characters etched so deeply they looked carved by claws instead of tools. Two guards stepped aside. Qin Shi Huang pressed his palm to the center of the door. A deep groan resonated through the stone, and slowly the slabs shifted open. A wave of heat washed over them. The chamber inside was circular, illuminated not by torches but by a single column of flame rising from a stone basin. It moved without fuel, without smoke, alive, somehow aware. The walls were adorned with metallic mirrors reflecting the flame in endless fragments, creating the illusion of 1,000 fires swirling around them. Arin stepped forward reluctantly, drawn toward the burning column as if by an invisible force. His heartbeat pounded, echoing in the chamber. "Stand before it," the Emperor commanded. Arin obeyed, approaching the basin. The heat should have burned him, but instead it felt strangely warm, almost welcoming. The flame shifted color, deepening from orange to gold, then to white. A soft hum filled the room. Li Shun whispered, "Impossible." The flame rose higher, twisting and bending toward Arin like a living creature recognizing a familiar presence. For a moment, it hovered inches from his face, its light washing over him. Then, with a burst of brilliant white, the flame recoiled upward and shattered into countless sparks. The chamber plunged into darkness for a heartbeat before the flame reformed, smaller but steadier. Arin staggered back. Qin Shi Huang's voice was barely above a whisper. "It has chosen you." Li Shun stared, stunned. "The flame has not reacted for generations." The Emperor lifted his chin, his tone turning cold, decisive. "Prepare him. His life from this moment belongs to the prophecy, and to me." Arin felt the last thread of his old life snap. The palace had not just recognized him. It had claimed him. Arin was escorted back to his quarters, the memory of the living flame still burning behind his eyes. The forbidden palace felt different now, as if its walls tracked his every breath. When night fell, Emperor Qin Shi Huang summoned him once more. The ruler studied him with a gaze sharp enough to cut stone. "You entered where no servant should," the emperor said, "yet the palace accepted you. The prophecy does not speak of a threat, but of a turning." Arin felt the weight of destiny pressing on his shoulders. He was no longer a simple attendant, nor a prisoner. He had become something the emperor could not ignore. "From this moment," Qin Shi Huang declared, "you will walk beside me. Your choices will shape what I build beyond my lifetime, and perhaps what I leave to challenge time itself." Arin bowed, unsure whether this path was a blessing or a sentence. But there was no returning. The forbidden palace closed behind him, and his new fate began.